remember last week on Monday when we had that crazy feast about a chair? The chair of St. Peter? Well, that kind of made sense after we talked about it. If not, go back and listen to last Monday's morning message. Chair represented the authority of the Pope, the authority that the successor of St. Peter teaches with, Christ's own authority. And so his cathedra, or chair, is in his cathedral and represents the seat of his teaching authority. Well, as if having a feast about a chair wasn't weird enough, today, once again, we've got a chair. Yeah, I don't know. What is the deal with chairs? Take a seat, because Jesus goes there. He goes back and he talks about, observe whatsoever the scribes and Pharisees teach, for they sit on the chair of Moses, but do not follow their example. Sitting on the chair of Moses, what is this all about? Well, again, it's about authority. If you remember, I said last week that when a rabbi would teach, the position of teaching would be sitting. So a rabbi would go and he would sit down and his disciples would gather around him and he would teach. Today we kind of have this backwards. Teachers stand up and the students sit. But to sit and teach was actually the traditional way in which a rabbi would teach. So Jesus is saying that these teachers, the scribes and Pharisees, they may be setting a bad example. They're not living very well. Their conduct does not match the way they ought to be living. But their teaching has authority that goes beyond their own personal conduct. They sit on the chair of Moses. In other words, they teach the authority of the law, and the law doesn't depend upon whether they live it or not. The law is the law, and it's truth. It comes from God, even if nobody follows it. Everyone can be wrong, and it doesn't change the truth, no matter how many people are right about it or wrong about it. I think that's an important thing for us to remember today, especially when faced with scandal in our own days, particularly scandal amongst those that we would consider leaders. Now, obviously, we can look at leadership in the church, and it's kind of the same thing that Jesus was dealing with. We have leaders that are much more like the scribes and Pharisees, who want to appear to be perfect, to appear to be keeping the law, to appear righteous, when really underneath, they're just a bunch of miserable sinners like all of us. Jesus did not like the Pharisees very much, and sadly we're doing somewhat the same today, where we want to keep up the appearance as if everything's okay, and especially amongst the leaders, we want to pretend that, well, the leaders are perfect. Same thing the Pharisees were doing. Jesus does not have a problem with imperfect people, even amongst his leaders. If you remember, he picked rather imperfect people to be his apostles. What he does have a problem with is the pretend show of perfection. That's what the Pharisees are doing. They're pretending to live perfect lives when really they're not. However, despite this scandal, Jesus says when they teach with authority, when they talk about the law and what it means, they're probably right. They're teaching with authority. And so even though your priest, your bishop, your pope even, might have his own personal problems, and indeed we do, when we stand up and speak and say, this is what God says, and here's what the catechism says, and this is what the church has always taught, and this is what's been handed on. It doesn't matter how big a personal scoundrel the person's saying it might be. If what they're saying is true, it's true. If they teach with authority, because God has authority, and he's given it to people to teach. So today, what do you do when you run up against this kind of scandal? A lot of people lately have said, that's it. Catholic Church, you're not living what you're, teaching here. You're not practicing what you preach. I'm out. And that's maybe understandable, but I think we can hear today the words of Jesus saying, no. When my followers teach with authority, listen, because it's not them that's speaking, it's me. But at the same time, Jesus says, but don't follow their example. And this goes not just for leaders in the church, it goes in leaders in society, it goes for all of us as Christians. How many times do we start off with good intentions and end up instead chasing after power, prestige, influence, and we get all concerned about our appearance and how things look? Put all that aside today. Set your faith firmly on the rock, not of the person of St. Peter, but upon his office and even his chair. Chairs can be a pretty good thing when they stand for the authority of God. So today, be grateful for the chairs, the authoritative chairs in which the Pope, bishops sit. Don't follow their example if they're poor human examples, but do follow their teaching because they sit on a chair given them by Jesus. God bless you.